Right, in this quick video I'm going to run you through how to use Meshmixer to take one of my 3D scans and improve it. So in this case we're going to be taking one of the driver figures and replacing the sort of appeal looking shoes with some better shoes. Yeah, let's get into it. So we're going to be using Meshmixer, which is a really cool free bit of software. And like I said, we're going to be using driver 002 from the download section and shoes C from the custom model section of the downloads. But you can do this with any files. I'm just going to use this as an example. So we're going to import in the file. Go to my desktop where it is saved. And import in driver 002. So you might want to familiar yourself with Meshmixer a little bit, how to rotate around objects and things like that. But this tutorial is about replacing parts of the character just to make it that little bit more realistic. So you see here we've got these kind of lowish poly shoes that I put on. I think I scanned this guy about 7 or 8 years ago now, and I just think he just looked nice with a better pair of shoes. So now we've got this character. We're going to import in the shoes. So click import. You come to this window, click append, which basically adds the model to the viewport rather than replacing the existing model. I'm going to add shoes, C, and now that's added this pair of shoes in here. And it also opens this object browser window, which I'm just going to put to this side. This is just a way of seeing what objects you have inside Meshmixer at the moment, and it names them as per the file which you've imported them in as. So the first thing we want to do is move shoe C and scale it to the right size and position on driver 0. So the way we do that is we select shoe C in the object browser. We then go up to edit and transform. Now this is again something that you probably need to practice a little bit, but here you've got the gizmo to move things around, so you can move it left and right on the axis. Well, that's the Z axis to come forwards and backwards, and the Y axis to go up and down. You've also got these rotate parts of the gizmo, so you can rotate them any way you like. And then you've got these scale ones, which are the square icons at the edge. So if you want to scale it up like that, you can do. If you want to scale them uniformly, click on the white big cube in the middle, and you can scale it up or down. So that's basically how to move it. Oh, there's also these little triangles here. So these little triangles means it'll move on in both axes. So this green one moves it along the Z axis and the X axis. And that one moves it on the Y and the X, and that one moves it on the Y and the Z. So I'll just undo that. So the first thing I want to do is just position the shoe in the right place. So I'm just using my gizmo here just to rotate, move it into position. Again, this is something you're probably just going to need to practice and get used to. Even for me, it feels a little bit alien because I'm used to a different bit of 3D software where I'd probably do something like this, but it's fine. It just means that the shortcuts and the way you move things are a bit different. So now I've kind of got the shoe into the right position, you can see there, but it's a bit small. So looking from underneath, you can see that obviously I just need to make the shoe a little bit bigger to match the original. So I'm going to click on that middle scale icon, and then sort of drag it into position. And it's also a bit low, so I'm just going to raise it up a little bit. I think I might want to rotate it just a little bit. Again, how accurate you want to be here is completely up to you. I'm going to try and get as close as possible without being too pedantic. Yeah, I think that'll work for that one. So that was the shoe on the right. Now, one thing I did forget to mention when I imported in the the shoe was, in each of my shoes, there's only ever one shoe, and it's always the right shoe. And I just know that because I've created them and stuff like that. But from you, it might not be that obvious. I'll quickly show you this. So in the object browser, I'm just going to hide the driver. And if I come from the top, you can kind of tell it's the right shoe. You know, the big toe area and that sort of thing. So you can generally tell from just looking at it. So now we need to create the other shoe on the other side. The way you do this is a little bit clunky compared to what I'm used to, but it does work, so it's fine. All we're going to do is click on Shoe C. I'm going to click this little duplicate icon down here. Sorry, I needed to come out of the transform, so I clicked on driver 2, driver C, and now I'm going to click duplicate. There we go, and it has duplicated somewhere. Let's go into edit, transform. Okay, so it's put it exactly over the top of the other one. So we'll just move it out of the way. But of course, this is the right-hand shoe. So we need to mirror this. And conveniently, there's a little thing under the edit section called mirror. Now, mirror is almost like a symmetry thing. So it creates like a mirror down your model. And you can move where it mirrors things. So all I want to do is just move that mirror away from here to give us a gap between the one we've duplicated and the mirrored one. Now, so technically we've got 3 shoes, but that's okay. So we're going to click accept. And then we just need to get rid of this right-hand shoe. So we're going to go into select. And this is quite useful tool that we're going to use in a bit. We're going to click and drag around the shoe. And then hit delete. So now we have the left-hand shoe. And again, all we're going to do now is transform it into the right place. There shouldn't be a need to rescale this because the shoes should be the same size basically. So let's get it into roughly the right position. Yeah, I think that's probably going to work pretty well. So click accept on that. So now we've got these 2 shoes, and if I control and click, you can see there we've got these 2 shoes in here. But obviously we've still got the older shoes sort of coming through there. Now, you know, some people might think that's okay, but there's a way of deleting just the old shoes in this, and so we can then have it looking really nice and neat. So the way we do that is we're going to hide the 2 shoes by clicking the hide icon and select the driver in the object browser. And then we're going to come back over to that tool we've just used called the select tool. So we're going to click select. And again, just like we did with the shoe we didn't want, we can click and drag and we can select things, so we can do things like that. Yep. Which is really good for selecting things like that. But what that isn't so good at is trying to select these areas here. Now you might notice this big grey shadow here. This is called the brush, and we can actually select things by clicking on the brush. But the brush is too big at the moment, so let's undo that. Undo that. Just go back. Go back to here. So we're going to make the brush size quite small, maybe about 15 or so. You can type these figures in there if you want to be accurate. And now you've got several options. So the quickest way to do it is to select as much as you can using like that lasso thing. And then you can just carry on painting just by clicking and holding down your left mouse button and just painting out what you don't, what we're going to delete basically. Now, you don't have to be super accurate with this, but sort of the more accurate you are, the better. Again, just take your time just to familiarize yourself with these different techniques, especially if you've not come from a 3D background or a computer background or anything like that. It can seem a little bit technical at times, But honestly, once you've done this 2 or 3 times, you kind of understand how these things work and how this process works. Now, suppose we accidentally go over a bit we don't want to delete, such as that trouser there. We can hold down Control and click, and it just undoes what that selection was before. So again, I'm just being quite careful here, just to quickly paint over the bits that we don't want to see. Remember to get these inside faces. Again, I've just gone a little bit too far there, so hold down Control and just take them faces back. Again there, but that's okay. I think that's fine. We don't want to spend ages trying to be absolutely pixel perfect on this. We just want to delete the shoe. So once you've done that, you're now going to hit delete, and it's just going to come up with this little error message here to say that we've kind of broken the mesh and that we've now got these holes in here. So trying to 3D print this would probably give us some errors in our slicer, and it might not print. It might not even load into the slicer. So we can fix that really easily though. Now there are some other tools in here to like fill holes and things like that, but I found that the easiest way is to go analysis and inspector. And this inspector is a really useful tool, but for us it identifies the errors in the mesh. So it says we've found some errors. Here are the 2 errors. Now you can either click on the blue thing to fix it, and it paints that in there, or you can just click auto repair all, and it does the same thing. Sometimes with objects you'll have like hundreds of these little errors, that if the model hasn't been built very well or something like that. And so that gives us now a solid printable object if you wanted to. But again, we're just going to take it that little bit further. So let's unhide the shoes, and we can see that kind of looks okay now. It's acceptable. We might be able to print something like that, but so there's 2 or 3 more steps to go through before we are ready to what I think is probably the standard that we want to be at. Now we're going to re-hide the shoes, and we're just going to smooth these sort of clunky looking areas. And we've got these tools over here called the sculpt tools, and we've got ways of basically sculpting the mesh. Over here we've got some brushes, and these brushes kind of define what you can do with the mesh. So like the drag one, for instance, you can click and drag it out, which is useful in certain things. Draw, you draw over the top of things, and so on. So just feel free to have a play with these. But for what we need, we're going to be using this shrink smooth brush, and we're just going to keep it the default settings as they are. And we're just going to click and just quickly smooth off where we fixed that hole. You can just go over these edges just ever so slightly, just soften them off. Again, it's not that essential to do this, but it does make things look a little bit nicer. It's probably going to help them print a little bit better because you're avoiding those really thin, jagged edges that your 3D printer might struggle to print at, especially if you're printing in some smaller scales. So once we've done that, that looks pretty good to me. We're going to unhide these shoes. And again, we just want to check here. Now I can see that kind of the shoe is poking out from the side of these trousers here. So again, I'm just going to quickly maybe use the draw 2. It's going to pull things out a little bit more. I just want to draw in and just define this edge of the trousers just a little bit more. Now it is going to look a little bit rough, and I'm just going to make my brush size a little bit bigger because I think we're still on 15. So let's just go up to maybe 26 and just really push that out a little bit. Let's just check. Maybe we can just do that there on that where it's just going through them laces. Maybe just a bit there needs pushing out as well. And then I'm just going to go back to that shrink smooth and just smooth things down a little bit. Again, I'm being, a bit overkill really on how I am refining the model and things like that. But it's good for you to know these little things. So that is the trousers and things sorted out now. Now you could export out this whole thing and it probably will print fine. But there is one other step that we can do that's going to make it even better, and you're not going to have any issues when you come to slice the model in 3D. Now the problem is if I hide this driver, and this is a cool little tip, hide the driver figure and then keep it selected, it shows this kind of X-ray view. And now you can see that the shoes are poking through the trousers. So you've got these two meshes that are intersecting. Now, most slicers are probably fine with that, but it's not sort of best practice. You kind of want this just to be all one continuous mesh, just to make it, just to make sure there's no issues in the future. So we're going to boolean, which is the technical term, these three meshes together. So I'm just going to make this visible again. I'm going to select the driver 02. I'm going to hold down Control and select one of the shoes. And it automatically comes up with this window in the top left. Now I want to Boolean union. So if we click on Boolean union, it figures out where these two meshes intersect, and it's going to delete anything where the intersection happens and just leave us with this nice mesh on the outside. Now just leave these as they are, they should be fine. Click accept. And now if we use that trick of before of just clicking on the driver and hitting hide, you can see now that the shoe doesn't go inside the trousers, and that's made this into one complete mesh. So again, we'll just do the same with this other shoe now, because I want to make sure that that's just part of one mesh. So we're going to click control in the browser window to make sure that we have everything selected. We're going to go Boolean union. Again, leave them as they are and click accept. And there we go. It has now created a complete model. Now the last thing we want to do before we export this is just again use that inspector. We just want to do this just to double check that nothing weird has happened in here. This will flag up anything that we might need to repair or anything like that, but the majority of the time it is completely fine. So click done, and that's it. It's ready now to export and 3D print. So we're going to go export. I might call this driver full height with new shoes. Save it as probably an STL is the best format for 3D printing. And that's it. That is now ready for slicing for 3D printing. And there we've taken one of the older scans that I had, put some new shoes on it, and he is now ready to 3D print. And so you can imagine you can do this for quite a few things. I might look at put together another quick tutorial about how to change heads on people, how to turn people's heads maybe a little bit, change people's hands. Drivers in cabs, you might not want to print their legs. Same with people sitting in carriages. We can remove the parts that are not seen, therefore saving you time and effort with 3D printing and your material and your costs and everything else that goes along with it. So that's it. If anybody has any questions, obviously just reach out and let me know. But yeah, hope you find that useful and enjoy. Let me know how you get on. Take care. Bye.